It all started with a misplaced coffee mug. Not exactly the opening line to an epic, I know, but that's how it began. My favorite mug, the one with a slightly chipped rim and a picture of a grumpy-looking cat, was gone. I'd left it on the kitchen counter, right next to the toaster. Now, it wasn't. I checked the dishwasher, the sink, even the fridge, because who hasn't put something weird in the fridge when they're half asleep? Nothing. I asked my roommate, Dave. He just shrugged, his face buried in his phone, probably watching videos of people falling over. Classic Dave. I figured it would turn up. Things always do. But then, the next day, my left sock went missing. Just one. I had a perfectly good pair of Argyle socks, and now I had a lonely right one. This was getting annoying. The day after that, the remote control for the TV vanished. Now, this was a declaration of war. We spent an hour tearing the living room apart, checking under cushions, benda, television even inside the potted plant. It was gone. Dave blamed me. I blamed him. And we ended up ordering pizza in grumpy silence. The weirdness escalated. A single egg would disappear from the carton. The milk would be slightly less full than I remembered. My toothbrush was once damped when I knew I hadn't used it. I started feeling a little paranoid. I set up my webcam in the living room, pointing at the sofa where the remote was last seen. I let it record all night. The next morning, I eagerly checked the footage, fast-forwarding through hours of stillness. Then, I saw it. At around 3 a.m., a flicker of movement. I slowed it down. It wasn't a mouse or a bug. It was a garden gnome. I'm not kidding. A little ceramic garden gnome, with the pointy red hat and the white beard, waddled into the frame. It climbed up the side of the sofa with surprising agility, grabbed the remote, and ten hoosed, slid back down and walked out of the room. I watched it 5 times, my jaw on the floor. I showed the video to Dave. He stared at it, then at me, and asked if I'd been messing with special effects software again. He didn't believe me. He thought I was pulling an elaborate prank. So, I had a gnome problem. A kleptomaniac gnome problem. I decided to confront it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in a dark corner of the living room, armed with a butterfly net and a whole lot of questions. Sure enough, around 3 a.m., the little guy appeared. He tiptoed in from the hallway, his painted-on smile looking incredibly creepy in the moonlight. He made a beeline for the fruit bowl. As he reached for an apple, I flicked on the lights and yelled, "Aha!" He froze, apple in hand, looking like a deer in headlights. A very, very short ceramic deer. I scooped him up with the net. He didn't struggle, just stared at me with his glassy, painted eyes. I sat him down on the coffee table. "Okay, buddy," I said. "Where's my stuff?" He just sat there, smiling, his infuriating little smile. I noticed something then, a tiny, almost invisible seam running down his side. Curious, I pressed on it. With a soft click, the gnome's torso popped open like a kinder surprise egg. Inside, it wasn't hollow. It was filled with intricate clockwork, gears, and wires, and nestled among the machinery was a tiny, rolled-up piece of paper. I carefully pulled it out and unrolled it. It was a map, a hand-drawn map of my own apartment building, with a red X marking a spot in the basement. This was getting stranger by the second. Was this a treasure hunt? A bizarre prank orchestrated by someone with way too much time on their hands? I looked at the gnome. Its little clockwork heart was ticking softly. It was some kind of messenger. The next day, armed with a flashlight and the gnome's map, I went down to the basement. It was your typical creepy apartment basement, damp, dusty, and filled with forgotten junk. The map led me to a corner, behind, rusted boiler. There was a section of the concrete wall that looked slightly different, a patch of a lighter gray. I pushed against it. It didn't budge. I pushed harder, and with a grinding scrape, a small section of the wall swung inward, revealing a dark, narrow passageway. My heart was pounding. Every horror movie I'd ever seen screamed at me to turn back, but my curiosity was a much louder voice. I stepped through. The passage was tight and smelled of damp earth and something else. Something sweet, almost like candy. It sloped downward, deeper under the building. After about 50 feet, it opened into a cavernous room, lit by glowing fungi growing on the walls, casting a soft, blue-green light. And the room was filled with gnomes. Hundreds of them. They were all frozen in place, like a terracotta army of keys. And in the center of the room, on a makeshift throne of lost socks, misplaced keys, and single earrings, sat a man. He was impeccably dressed in a velvet smoking jacket, and he was sipping tea from my grumpy cat mug. "Ah, welcome," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "I've been expecting you." Reginald is usually very reliable. He gestured with his head towards the clockwork gnome, which I was still holding. "We were wondering when you'd solve the puzzle." I was speechless. I just stared at him, at the mountain of lost objects surrounding him. I saw my Argyle sock, the television remote, Dave's favorite pen, and a truly astonishing number of Tupperware lids. What is this?" I finally managed to stammer out. "This," he said, with a grand sweep of his arm, "is the Bureau of Misplaced Objects. We are the reason for that sock that vanishes in the laundry. The car keys that aren't where you swear you left them. The pen that rolls off your desk and into another dimension. We maintain the subtle, everyday chaos that keeps life from becoming too predictable. You steal people's stuff to keep things from being predictable." "Not steal," he corrected gently. "Repurpose. Relocate. We are curators of minor inconvenience. A world where everything is always where it should be is a dreadfully boring world. Don't you think? A little mystery, a little frustration. It adds spice to life. It forces you to adapt, to think, to occasionally tear your living room apart in a fit of rage. It's character building." He took another sip from my mug. "You, my friend, showed remarkable initiative. Most people just buy a new remote. They give up. But you investigated. You engaged with the mystery. That's why Reginald brought you the map. We have a job opening." He gestured to an empty chair next to his throne. A chair made entirely of mismatched cutlery. "We're looking for a new field agent for the 7th Street residential block. The last one, well, he got a bit too attached to a specific collection of bottle caps and retired to a life of quiet hoarding. The position comes with a competitive benefits package, flexible hours, and all the single socks you can carry." I stood there, in a secret underground cavern run by a man in a smoking jacket who commands an army of clockwork gnomes to steal household items, being offered a job as a professional chaos agent. My life had started the day before with a missing coffee mug. Now I was at a crossroads. Go back upstairs to my normal, predictable life with Dave and his phone, or join the Bureau of Misplaced Objects and become a master of minor mayhem. He smiled, a genuine, warm smile. The world is full of wonders, if you just know where to look. Or, in our case, where to hide things. So, what do you say? Ready to make the world a slightly more interesting and frustrating place? I looked at Reginald, the little gnome in my hand. I looked at the mountain of treasure, the glorious hoard of pointless, everyday things. And I thought about how utterly boring my life had been up until that point. I looked back at the man on the throne, and I started to smile. Maybe a little chaos was exactly what I needed. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this trip down the rabbit hole, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the strange side of life. See you next time.